Sowmyanarayan Sampath. Welcome. Look, you just saw we had a very interesting discussion around deploying generative AI. You guys probably have the biggest scale that I can think of in terms of running a contact center. I believe with over 200 million calls or something like that.
200 million happy customers calling us.
There you
day,
go.
Yes.
That's great. So, walk us through your deployment journey in terms of especially leveraging large language models or any other components of generative AI.
Yeah. Thanks for having me here today. Look, I strongly believe that AI /Gen AI is the only deflationary tool we have in our economy for the next 2 decades. Because almost everything that's going to happen in the economy is going to be inflationary. The energy transition is going to be inflationary in the system overall. An aging population is going to be inflationary. More spending on defense budgets generally in the world is going to be inflationary. Last is outsourcing, offshoring has kind of gotten to, I would say, the last 2 innings of the game. So we really don't have, as operators today, any long-term deflationary tool other than Gen AI and AI to get us to our price points where we want to over the next 20 years. So at a bigger concept, I'm very bullish about the technology. Having said that, I strongly believe 99% of all the use cases that people are spending time on right now will never hunt. Partly because the CFOs haven't gotten involved yet. Most of the time, we are kind of tending to bypass CFOs because it's a hot thing, everyone wants to do it, and it's very expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, a simple search in Gen AI is 10x more expensive. An image search is 300 times more expensive. And a video search is between 1,000 and 10,000 times more expensive. So I think there's going to be a shaking out of this will happen. It's typical of any new technology. I don't think this is anything unique in the space to do that. Also, most Gen AI technologies right now tend to be very supply-led. We have this great technology. There are a lot of partners trying to push this technology. And then people are like, oh, I want to get on the bandwagon and get involved in it. So I think it's a good thing. There'll be a good shakeout of applications and enterprises. And there'll be 10, 12, 20 really big applications. And I think we are probably going to get to that sometime next year.
So if you mentioned a few things there, which I want to double click on. Clearly cost, it seems like an inhibitor right now. If it was a lower price point, you would be using that in a bigger way. Would that be fair to characterize it?
Look, given our size and scale, we tend to get great deals from everyone. Also, we are the frontier of a lot of this technology, so that helps us. But going longer term on a BAU basis, I think getting the right price point is going to be important for us larger in this space to scale out at the scale that we want to do. But also for other companies, look, margins are tight. The business case has to be accretive. CFOs are going to get involved, as I said, sooner or later. It's going to get accretive, and that'll shake out a lot of use cases that are kind of working through right now.
So in a contact center setting, what would be a very pertinent, use case around changing how you operate your contact center? Like, can you be a little bit more specific?
Maybe I walk through. Let's say, Mandeep, you call me because what a great service I provide. Let's say you call into a contact center. As soon as you call into a contact center, we use AI to route the call to the right agent. And we get 6 to 10% better outcomes when we route to the right person. And the routing is based on your interaction last time, what service you use now, what plans you have. It may even go as deep as, are you a Disney fan because we sell Disney? Then we'll have someone who knows Star Wars, can talk to you about that. So we have thousands of different things that we put in. So step 1, we route it to the right agent. That's a big thing. As soon as we route it to the agent, in real time, listening to you, we get live dynamic offers in front of the agent.
Okay.
Based on Gen AI, like, hey, you think we need to do this, you need to do this. And let's say you take a tone which is you're angry, irritable. A lot of those offers will die down because last thing we want to do is sell you something when you're in irritable mode to do that. So there's deep AI that we use in that space. In parallel, your supervisor of the call center rep is monitoring your call on a sentiment basis today. What's your sentiment? Are you using words you shouldn't? Are you raising your voice? Is your tone not right? And then we track it. And you can see sometimes things get out of hand. The supervisor will jump in and say, hey, Sampath, why don't I take it forward from here? Have a great day. So that's a place we use AI as well. going forward, we do it as a coaching tool. Every call we do is recorded. We say for quality and training purposes, this is that thing. We record every call, transcribe it, and every morning I get an email on what the sentiment was for the customers the night before. Earlier, I had to call agents, I had to call managers in the field. Now we use GenAI to do that summary for me.
Are you like using these models, and I don't know if you are using any of the foundational LLMs, out of the box, or is there a certain amount of fine-tuning involved in terms of how you customize the LLMs?
Look, we do have to customize some of the piece. And then the last one is the call summary, which is really interesting because you've had this 18-minute call with someone, and then you have to put notes into the system. The agent doesn't have to put in notes anymore. So there are like 8 or 9 places in a typical call where we use GenAI at scale to do that. We tend to get a couple of minutes savings on the call. We invested back in listening and investing back in sales. But we end up having to customize a lot of our fundamental models to do that piece. Also, I think there's large models, but a lot of our value tends to come in small models as well for us, which you don't need $3 billion to develop. There's smaller things. We can run it off small clusters in one of our clouds or even on-prem sometimes to do that. So I think assuming that you have to use large foundational models for everything probably is not the right thing because it also requires a lot of work. The other piece is a lot of the GenAI work that's happening is not fully productized yet. It's raw technology that requires a lot of work. So I think over a period of time, we'll see more products, more modular, more plug and play. That'll help with adoption. I don't think we are there yet.
So in terms of deployment, I mean, to my mind, there are 2 things that are very important. One is obviously your employees need to embrace that change. And the other is the training that goes into rolling it out. So is there any dimension where you're seeing some friction, or on both dimensions you've been okay?
No, look, I think where I wish I'd done a better job, or I think I need to do a better job, is I also think I'm throwing too much technology at my agents.
Yeah.
I know it's an odd thing to say, because in isolation, each technology is a good thing. But when you add like 10 different things in front of the agent who's sitting in Philippines or in India or in Costa Rica, may not have the full cultural context of what's going on, it's a lot for the agent to digest in a single time. So I think we're going to slow down a little bit and let adoption catch up, let people get more intense into their work, and then over a period of time, we'll come back to adding stuff. So that was one interesting lesson that we learned, which is too much. I was in Philippines a couple of weeks ago to talk to my teams, and everyone loved everything for different reasons. But there was a feeling like they were praying I don't talk about a roadmap because like 7 more things I'm going to talk about. So I picked that up. I pulled that slide off. I think I did a good thing.
That's smart. Were there any ethical or privacy concerns when it comes to making decisions around generative AI?
Yeah, look, we always have human in the loop. I know Magesh talked about that as well. We have human in the loop. We check everything. I take a slightly less dramatic view of the world. I mean, if people want to do bad things, Java can help you do bad things as well. C++ can make you do bad things as well. A small code written in COBOL can make you do something bad. So I don't think Gen AI fundamentally changes the risk profile. What happens is when you get into an agentic format where they start taking decisions in real time with controls that may not in place, that may lead to unintended consequence. So for example, in my world, I want to make the customer really, really happy. Let's say that's the goal. If I take every customer's bill down by 20%, they're going to be incredibly happy.
Yeah.
I may not be here next year, but the customer's going to be incredibly happy to do that. So I think those are some of the issues we're trying to deal with, is where do you give it flexibility, where can it float on its own? Yeah. But I'm less stressed about the ethical piece and the other piece, because every technology can be misused from the wheel, for example.
Since you mentioned agent, and that came up in our prior panels as well, how much progress do you think we can make when it comes to this AI agent concept, specifically in the context of what you are doing, like 5 years from now, let's say?
Look, we're going to make incredible progress. What I don't know is, every model is step function better than the previous model. I do think over a period of time, we're going to start seeing that plateau out. Because right now it costs $3 billion to train a model, roughly with all the costs. People are saying, oh, it costs $20 billion to train a model. I don't think you're going to get 6x, 7x the benefit. I think the scaling may not be linear going forward there. But I think there's enough raw technology right now to last us for business for the next 5 years. Because you got to take it, you got to put it within our process, put it within our workflow, you got to do system integration work. So I don't think raw technology is going to hold back what I want to do. It's just the ability to digest it and put it into the workflow of a company. That's the piece. And what's interesting with this technology is this is one of those interesting technologies where deployment and what's available has a massive gap. I've never seen a gap in a technology this big. Invariably, it's the other way around. We tend to sell forward-looking roadmaps. Here, it's the other way around. The roadmaps are really forward. You're actually telling them to go back so they can deploy things properly. So it's a little shift to providers as well in terms of how they sell this.
And I guess in terms of automation, I mean, do you think it will happen in steps, or are we talking about more when the model gets to a certain level of accuracy? And I'm sure there are benchmarks to evaluate that. It's further out because you don't see the models are going to keep making progress. And I'm guessing you're not a believer in synthetic data because the open internet data has been used. Whatever these companies could use has been used. So you're not a believer in synthetic data, I'm guessing.
Yeah, look, when I had a real job at some point, my first job was in Excel, and I was an investment banking analyst. And it was a little bit garbage in, garbage out was what I was told, not to make my Excel models. I think 20 years later, I feel the same way. We're adding more synthetic data. Does it really improve the quality of the outcomes that happen in the space? Coming back to your concept of step function change, AI is a very different type of software in the sense it's massively iterative. If you look at classic software development, the way it works, it's not that iterative. You have a set of releases, you have core functions, you have function points that need to be released, they get released. Now, it may happen in an agile way. I don't want to confuse the flow of functionality with how it's developed, because agile software can happen in any case. But software has a defined set of functionality that happens. Because AI and Gen AI and some of the models are a little more probabilistic, it's going to be massively iterative because you can never be deterministic on what you'll get when because of the nature of the software. And that creates issues for us in a world where we want everything to be deterministic. So for example, if 10 customers come with the same set of inputs, I want exactly the same output for them. That cannot be guaranteed right now because there's a little bit of float in the model, there's a little bit of hallucination in the model. And who gets most excited? The auditors in the company. Because they're like, we gave you 10 things to go, you put it through the system, and I got 4 different answers. Well, that's the nature of AI. So I think it's going to be very iterative. We're going to have to learn how to deal with it.
But that's going to prevent the model from reasoning, which is where I think everyone wants these models to reason. So I guess if it's deterministic, then you're saying it won't reason.
It won't reason, and if it reasons too much, it's going to be very difficult to have outcomes that make sense. See, this is the challenge. That's why you're saying, if I have a 6th grader who's using a ChatGPT quite extensively. He's been told he needs to cite it when he uses it. I hope he does that. You're like, if he has the whole world on his fingertips at a $21 a month account, why can't you at Verizon do all these things? It's this gap. I need to be deterministic. I can't have it hallucinate. We have RAG architectures and other things to hold it in place. But this probabilistic versus deterministic is a new concept for businesses. Because everything we do in our company, our audit, our SOC compliance, our revenue reporting, offers we make, every single thing is very deterministic. That's the world we've grown up in. And now we have this probabilistic world with a little bit of float. It's going to shake things up a lot. And I don't think we are all fully ready to know what that happens with that.
How much time do you spend in terms of evaluating these different models that are out there? And looks like the race is narrowing to 5 frontier models. Is that something you spend your time on?
I may have a naive view of this. So look, I think foundational models are pretty commoditized right now for the most part. I think there are 4 or 5 big models. It costs $3-4 billion each to create a model right now. If you pull China out of the picture, probably 2 or 3 companies can afford it and do that piece. I think where the big value is going to be is verticalization of this. Verticalization, domain speciality, and that's where all the value is going to be created. Who's going to be the trillionaires that come out of this are going to be companies who found a way to take some of this foundational model, customized it. It's the next wave. If you look at SaaS companies,
Yeah.
every SaaS company was an Excel spreadsheet that became a SaaS company over a period of time. Think about it. Every single SaaS company is a spreadsheet sitting somewhere in someone's desk, is now a fully SaaS company, you can think. I think models are going to be similar, where every SaaS company out there is going to get impacted by AI because they're going to take those large models, verticalize it, domain specialize it, and that's where you'll see a lot of the value.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked the prior panelists in terms of what changed 18 to 24 months back when ChatGPT came in terms of your planning? And I'm guessing you guys plan, 2-3 years out in terms of your IT spend and what you're going to focus on. So what changed?
Look, I think the previous panelist said there is no more budget than there already is in the system. So I think we'll have to take money from somewhere to fund a lot of this. And I think most companies are going to have to go through that. So there's going to be a loser and a winner in all of this. The piece that irritates me a little bit is there's not enough products to buy. It's all raw technology. You put it. Whenever I hear words like co-developed, co-invent, I get nervous because it's code for there's not enough productization in the field in that space. So I think we are doing a lot more trial and error. We have a lot more people just playing around with things. But one of the things we've done quite effectively is shut down all proof of concepts. Because I just feel, in a large company, the easiest way to say no to something is to ask them to do a proof of concept. But it takes so much resource cycles. It pulls my CTO, his team, my CIOs, all of them in so much. So I would rather focus on 4 or 5 big applications, Mandeep, where we see a lot more value than spread ourselves quite thin in the space.
So what would those be, the 4 or 5?
Look, for us, I think contact center is definitely a big one, both for sales and service. I think the other piece for us is typically contact centers have always been a service mechanism first. But we've launched something called Service Plus, which is you service and you sell. I want all these centers to be sales engines over a period of time. And that's been one of the biggest upsides of Gen AI. So that's one definite. Second is personalization of offers in real time, dynamic offers that can be scored with reactions back and forth. The third is network planning. I think we are really hot on network planning. We run the largest network on earth. How you plan that network, how you move power, how do you move resources. And of course, the actual act of writing code. We haven't spoken about that, but I'm hoping to see 30, 40, 50% productivity gain over the next 3 to 4 years in writing code in that space. So these are our 3 plus just better code development are where we've doubled down over a period of time. Use cases is going to be revenue, cyber, because cyber deterministic works probabilistic works really well for us. So these are the 4 or 5 areas where we've doubled down on. There are some areas we've missed, like supply chain, and whether you can write a better PR press release using Gen AI. Someone will figure it out, but I'm not in that space.
And what could go wrong? If there's one thing that could go wrong with the assumptions that you're making about deploying generative AI in a certain way, what would that risk factor be?
Look, I think the first thing is going to cost me so much, I don't get enough value out of it. I'm nervous about that. Okay. It's still an unproven thing in the business world out there. So I deploy all this, we deploy political capital, real capital. The ROI is just not there in some of these cases. So I think that's a real piece. The second thing is the control mechanism that we have around it. For example, you're chatting with a chat bot, and you say, lower my bill, and very efficiently it lowers the bill. It does its job. Somewhere in the process, we may miss catching that. So those are some unintended consequences. That's why we try and release it for smaller pools. We check, and then before we roll it out broadly in the space. Those are 2, and the last is regulation. It's awkward that the regulation comes out before the product comes out, but I guess lawmakers have stuff.
And we like to end on an optimistic note. So what could surprise you to the upside when it comes to what you're factoring in now?
Labor productivity in the country. If you take the last 15 years of labor productivity in America, there are two ways labor productivity happens. The first one is outsourcing, offshoring type work, which has come to an end, or it's slowed down a lot. The second is tech factor, which is automation, robotics. That's kind of grown up a little, but net-net, we only seen 1.5% labor productivity every year. In a country our size with so much technology and so many GPUs, we got to see better labor productivity in this space. So I'm really bullish that over the next 10, 20 years, with AI in general, robotics, it really helps bring some manufacturing back. I think it's going to do a lot for the social fabric of our country, employment, and it'll get us back on staying on course to being the most productive labor force in the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving an applause for Sowmyanarayan Sampath.
Thank you.